Well, hey folks, Real Honestly Witcher Rental in the second part of my fantasy booking series for the women's division from Survivor Series 2018 to Mania 35. And for those of you that enjoyed the first part, thank you guys so much, by the way, for the positive feedback. Thank you guys for any feedback you provide on any of the videos that either myself or myself and the Durban do, or whether it's solo videos that Durban does. I really appreciate the feedback. Thank you guys so much. It really means a lot. Thank you guys as fellow wrestling fans for tuning in. I appreciate any content that you guys provide, whether you just write out your ideas on Twitter, do written blogs, or do your own YouTube videos. Keep doing what you're doing. Let's just make this wrestling fan community a lot more positive. Thank you guys very much. Now, my ideas simply just come from a fan's perspective. Obviously, I'm not an insider or any of this kind of stuff, but I look at the women and I think, how could I book them better? So, brief recap of what happened in part one. I fancy booked TakeOver War Games 2, Electric Boogaloo, Survivor Series, and TLC, where I did make the Iconics the new WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. And from there, you can build up other teams and have them face off and see who can dethrone the Iconics. So, leaving off there, we start with a TakeOver just before the Rumble, where I'm going to have Shayna versus Kyrie versus Nikki Cross, and you have Nikki Cross having this feud with Candice LeRae and stuff like that on NXT TV, and Nikki is also competing in underneath matches on SmackDown. And it seems like an odd move, but the reason to do it is, one, NXT tapes their TV way in advance, so you can kind of do that kind of stuff, and it really does add, like, oh, hey, Nikki's this good on NXT, let's see what's happening on SmackDown, or, oh, she's this good on SmackDown, let's tune in NXT, and then you draw even more eyeballs to NXT, and it all works out. So, a three-way there, and what you're going to have is, during the match, Candice is going to come down and attack Nikki, and because it's triple threat, there's no DQ. So even though the referee's like waving it off, or not trying to wave it off, but like, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? Candice and Nikki brawl to the back. So then you have Shayna and Kyrie battling. Kyrie ends up down, kind of dazed. Jessamine Duke and Marina Sharif come down. They're going to, make the odds in Shayna's favor, and essentially, help her like they did Evolution. But Io Shirai and Mia Yim come down, even the odds, chase off Duke and Sharif. And Shayna goes for the clutch. Kyrie manages to get out of it, not to get the pin like she did at TakeOver Brooklyn 4. But what she does is she gets a stomp, gets an Alabama slam, and hits 3 insane elbows for the 1, 2, 3. Because Kyrie gets fired up and she's had enough. And that's basically it. Now, people say, oh, it's a squash for Shayna. Shayna's already well established and everything, and you keep Shayna in NXT until she's called up the night after WrestleMania 35, because you can get another TakeOver match or whatever, and you can get like you can get something, or even you don't have her on the TakeOver card and have her win the Women's Battle Royal at Mania. You do something like that. That's a way to establish another star. Let's see which route I go in part 3. You'll find out. So, Kairi Sane is the new NXT Women's Champion, and she can have another run and possibly put somebody big over, leading into the spring and summer. But for the title matches for the Rumble, before you get to the Women's Royal Rumble, you have Becky versus Asuka in a really good submissions-based, strike-based match, where Asuka gains the advantage for a bit, working on Becky's neck and arm and everything for the Asuka lock. Becky's been working on Asuka's arm. There's some really, really good stuff where then they try to go for the submissions, but they're hurting, this kind of stuff. They can't do something. Just they're in too much pain, this kind of stuff. Asuka ends up trying to get the Asuka lock. Becky does manage to fight out of it, gets a disarmer, and Asuka ends up not tapping out, but passing out from the pain. And she passes out from the pain and everything. And the referee's lifting her arm and waves it off and everything. So Becky wins. So Asuka doesn't tap out. Becky gets this big victory. So Becky retains her title. And then you have I was going to include Nia in this and make it another 3-way. But I decided to just have Nia in the Rumble and just have her have a bit of a dominant performance, because I don't see Nia as being much of a threat to Ronda. You have Ronda versus Nikki in an Evolution rematch, and Ronda ends up tapping out Nikki, and it's pretty much a squash. I mean, sorry, but Nikki should not be competing for the title at this point. So she gets basically squashed. I mean, she gets in a couple moves. They try the twin magic thing. Ronda just knocks Brie the F out. I mean, safely. But then just squashes Nikki. It just squashes her. So Ronda has a dominant victory. And so you got Becky and Ronda retain their championships, and then you get to the Royal Rumble. And I wrote down some detailed notes, so you're going to have a lot of NXT calls, but just for that night, you get Bianca Belair in there, Lacey Evans, you got Dakota Kai, Toni Storm, from NXT UK, but also NXT. Dakota's on both shows. It's really weird. But you have a bunch of NXT call-ups. And you have Nikki Cross start off as at number 1. And because she's crazy and insane, you're like, okay, this is going to be weird, this is going to be odd, but she can probably do it. She probably can be the one to go coast to coast. And then you have Sonya at number 2 and Charlotte at number 3. Because I'm trying to build Sonya. And how do you build up a new star? You have them go the distance and you have them do stuff like that. Now, who's going to win the Rumble? Well, you have to find out, because I'm not going to just tell you right now. But it's not going to be the new star that I'm building. But I have a reason for that, and I'm going to get to it, because what pay-per-view do you have after this? Elimination Chamber. And you got to make that event mean something. So, tons of NXT call-ups, as I said. You have Bayley come out at 15, and you have Sasha come out at 20. And they've got some tension, because earlier in the night, you had Bayley and Sasha lose to the Iconics in the opening match, where the Iconics retained the NXT women or the women's tag team championships. Yeah, not gonna do NXT women's tag team championships, but WWE women's tag team titles. So the Iconics, after winning them at TLC and defending them on a Raw or SmackDown before this, beat Sasha and Bayley. So you have that happen. And you got like some tension and everything, because there was miscommunication that again led to Bayley taking the pin, and Bayley's frustrated. But they worked it out, and everything, talked backstage, but, every woman for themselves in the Rumble. Okay. So again, Bayley at 15, Sasha 20. And it comes down to Sonya. You got Mandy there. Mandy comes in like, 22 or something like that. So you got Sonya at 2 and Mandy at 22. And you got Charlotte, Alicia, Bayley, Sasha. You could even have like Rhea come down, or even have Candice come down like 19 and toss out Nikki, which plays off their whole thing, and they can have like a mixed tag with Aleister and Nikki versus Gargano and Candice on like, NXT TV, because you got about 2 months, two and a half months until between that takeover and the next one. So again, it comes down to Sonya, Mandy, Charlotte, Alicia, Bayley, Sasha, and Rhea Ripley. Because Rhea Ripley is going to be factored in on this. Rhea Ripley is going to come in like, 24. And have a good showing, but you don't want to overexpose Rhea, who is an elite performer, but is still young and everything. But you have her have some dominant, moves and stuff like that, and you have her do some really good shit, and have her do some good power moves, because she is an incredibly strong performer. But then you have Alicia tossed out by Sasha and Bayley. All the other women are battling each other. Bayley then helps Sasha eliminate Mandy, because Sasha basically is trying to help Bayley, because Mandy and like Bayley are like tangled up and everything. And Sasha goes to dumps Mandy out, but nearly dumps Bayley out. And then Bayley just absolutely snaps, hits like 2 Bayley bellies on Sasha and eliminates her. And it's just like all like this and everything. all happy. So women are getting eliminated left to right. And then you have Rhea toss out Bayley. So now it's down to Charlotte, Rhea, and Sonya. And then Charlotte manages to eliminate Rhea. Like, Rhea gets overconfident and this kind of stuff and goes for like, she hits a big drop kick, but then gets overconfident, goes for something. Charlotte manages to duck and, toss Rhea out and stuff like that. So Rhea's frustrated and everything, and you think you're going to get a replay of the Royal Rumble 92 where, Hogan pulled out Sid, which, no, you're not going to get that. Because you got to establish like this, where you're down to like 2 and 3 and stuff like that. And I mean, I know it'd almost be better 1 and 2, but honestly, 2 and 3 are just as good. So you got Sonya and Charlotte, who basically started the Rumble. And Charlotte is the way to tell it, because what number did her dad enter in at in the 92 Rumble? Number 3. So Sonya and Charlotte battle, and they battle and everything, and Charlotte ends up tossing out Sonya. And Sonya goes for a kick, like scissors kick, something, whatever, and misses. Charlotte hits a spear, and then manages to toss out Sonya. So, Charlotte does win the Rumble. And suddenly has her confidence back and stuff like that and everything. And so you got some good shit going. Sonya looks really, really dominant. Rhea has a moment where she looks really, really dominant. You're doing some good stuff here. You've got some good build. You've got some good storylines you can go with. And yes, Rhea is still the NXT UK Women's Champion. And I'm not saying she won't defend the title on NXT UK, but let's be perfectly honest. There's that bubble over there and then the NXT bubble over here, and you got to kind of find a way to merge them just a little bit, because otherwise how are you going to get more eyes on the product? So bring up a certain star. And like I said, you're going to have other women in this. Is going to be really, really loaded. There will be a few surprise returns, but you don't need nearly as many when you have some NXT women that you can call up and have used really, really well. You could have Mercedes Martinez show up. You could have Meiko Satomura. You could do a whole lot of shit with it without having a whole bunch of legends return and a whole bunch of like one-off appearances. So Charlotte wins the Rumble. Sonya looks dominant, even in defeat. Rhea looks dominant, coming in at 24 and stuff like that. There's a whole lot of good shit that you can go with it. Now, next night on Raw, you have, a women's elimination chamber match is going to be announced. Second ever women's elimination chamber match. 3 women from Raw, 3 women from SmackDown. Qualified matches start tonight for Raw. And there are certain women that you're going to have featured. Like you could have Tamina and Nia suddenly, since they're teaming up, go for the tag titles, and the Iconics are all scared and stuff like that. So Alicia beats Dana. Like a 6-minute match, because all due respect to Dana, she should not be in the chamber. And let's give Alicia that. Alicia's not going to win the chamber, but let's slot her in there, because you got to have somebody with some experience there, and you might as well use Alicia a little bit better than they've been using her. And then you have Ruby defeat Natty. That's kind of playing off the whole thing, like even though it will have been a couple months by this point, where Ruby, who had a good showing in the Rumble also, but obviously didn't win it. Ruby beats Natty, and then Ruby's in the chamber, which is what should happen. And then Alexa beats Bayley. So Sasha couldn't compete because Bayley had tossed her out and this kind of stuff, and Sasha wasn't able to be part of it because Bayley had beaten her up backstage. So you got this thing that keeps going and everything. And they finally have just had enough of each other. And they're going to compete against each other, and that's how you build this stuff. So you have Bayley and Sasha and everything with this just ridiculous, blood feud that they're going to start building. But of course, Alexa's going to kind of be in charge of the women also, even though she's going to be wrestling, she's also going to be in charge of the women. And they're going to have Alexa and Stephanie have a co-branding thing where Alexa is going to suggest the idea of Sasha and Bayley teaming up to face the Iconics, and you can throw a couple other teams in there too. So we'll go with that as we get closer to it. So Alicia, Ruby, and Alexa are part of the Elimination Chamber. Ronda needs a new challenger. She's out in the ring. Nia, Tamina, and Ember show up one by one. I was going to have Rhea there, but I have some ideas for Rhea. A new 3-way is made. The winner faces Ronda at Elimination Chamber, and Ember wins. That frees up Nia and Tamina to go after the tag titles. So you then have SmackDown Live start, and you have Paige here. I'm not going to do the face rising like that. That was a really stupid marketing. It made her look terrible. She brings out Charlotte and talks up how, she won the Women's Royal Rumble. Charlotte talks about having her confidence back, and hopefully she can become champion again. Still kind of playing up this whole babyface thing, which is really stupid. There's a mixture of boos and cheers. The crowd does cheer for Becky. Obviously, Becky is not out there, but they're like, oh, they're going to rekindle this rivalry. But then Paige says, as a Rumble winner, she can choose which champion she faces. Fuck, Charlotte could go to NXT and challenge Kairi Sane. That's not going to happen, but it could happen. Paige mentions how SmackDown will also have 3 women in the chamber, as mentioned on Raw. And this brings out Sonya. And then Rhea Ripley, who argued that based on their performances in the Rumble, they should automatically be included. But no, they got to have qualifying matches. We fight here on Tuesday nights. We fight here on Thursday nights. We fight here on Friday nights. The only nights I didn't have SmackDown was Wednesday nights. I mean, it's kind of, they jumped the show around too much is my point. But anyway, you end up getting Sonya facing Zelina soon after. Sonya beats Selena fairly easy. I mean, Selena gets in a little bit of offense, but now the whole building of Sonya is starting to work, and fans are starting to get behind her. Fans were getting behind her at the Rumble. And then Asuka is going to be included based on her performance against Becky. Asuka beats Carmella. And then Rhea actually gets a qualifying match because since you have the Iconics as champions, you can't have them there. In the chamber match. I mean, you could. It wouldn't be a very good idea because then it makes sure that the tag titles aren't going to be defended. So you have Rhea defeat Mandy, which again draws more eyeballs to NXT UK. So Sonya, Asuka, and Rhea are going to be in the chamber. So that's a pretty loaded thing. And you have the Iconics out later, and they want new challengers. For SmackDown, Raw, NXT, doesn't matter. Sasha and Bayley appear on the Titantron, and even though they said they've had their differences, but frustrations aside, they are going to face the Iconics and finally beat them. Tamina and Nia show up, in a pre-taped thing and stuff like that, because obviously it's pre-taped or they're backstage or whatever. The bottom line is they appear on the Titantron. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of old school, this kind of stuff. But Sarah, Liv, and Ruby appear. And Ruby, who obviously is in the chamber, can't compete, says her girls, Sarah and Liv, are going to compete and win the WWE women's tag team titles. So you have Iconics, Sasha and Bayley, the Uneasy Alliance. Do not worry. That blood feud is really going to kick off very, very soon. Planting the seeds and stuff like that. So they're not buddy-buddy, but they recognize that they're better together than they are apart. And then you have Nia and Tamina, and then you have Sarah and Liv. Sorry, forgive me. I got so many ideas going on in my head. I forgot just suddenly what I said. But then you have Nikki come out, and she runs at the Iconics and stuff like that. Does all the crazy stuff that she does. And once in, she wants to play. I'm sorry to any of my Scottish fans to fall. I'm sorry for that terrible Scottish accent. But anyway, so you have that happen. You have Naomi come out also. So you're thinking you're going to get a 5-way. Well, Becky suddenly comes out and says, as a champion, this kind of stuff, I want new challengers. Nikki and Naomi look at each other, look at Becky. Naomi cuts a promo and this kind of stuff, saying, well, I want to become a 3-time women's champion because she was a 2-time women's champion in 2017, and Nikki wants to play with Becky again. Not going to say what I'm thinking. Just to say a lot of fanfics got launched when Nikki decided to say she wanted to play with Becky. You can probably guess where I'm going with this. Moving on. So yeah, you have all this stuff going on. It's going to be Becky defending in a 3-way. And yes, again, I know it seems kind of silly to do a 3-way, but this gets women on the card and gets a way to have a good match where women can, they can have some really, really good build and everything, and it can be some good stuff. So you get the Iconics versus Sasha Bayley versus Sarah and Liv versus Tamina and Nia. Now, Tamina and Nia aren't really like factored. I mean, they had some power moves and stuff like that, but they obviously aren't going to win. Sarah and Liv are there to gain some experience and everything, and they do pretty well. But this really is just throwing other teams in there, and the focus is going to be on the Iconics being unified and Sasha and Bayley being divided. And what happens is during that match, you get another miscommunication, and it leads to Sasha being pinned this time. And Sasha is up in Bayley's face and this kind of stuff afterwards. Why didn't you save me? Even though Bayley, say, was outside or, held back by Sarah and Liv and this kind of stuff, or Nia and Tamina. You could throw a whole bunch of stuff in there. And Bayley decides that she's had enough, and Sasha's just like, Sasha just goes to slap Bayley. Bayley captures her, hits a Bayley to belly, hits another Bayley to belly, and it's the third one. And just basically gets on the mic, I'm done with you. Or just screams at her. Does the whole you ain't shit thing, the same thing they did before they did that horrible Dr. Shelby segment. So they do that. And now you have the Iconics as WWE Women's Tag Team Champions heading into Mania. Nia and Tamina didn't take the pin. Sarah and Liv didn't take the pin. They got in their moves and everything. It was a way to do things. And yeah, okay, 4 ways are hard to pull off, especially with teams. But these women can do it. laid out correctly where everybody gets a chance to shine, and the Iconics again maintain the championship. And then you get Becky, Nikki, and Naomi for the title, and Naomi ends up tapping out. Nikki doesn't tap out because Nikki's already tapped out to Becky before. Naomi taps out, and this keeps Nikki kind of strong. Naomi doesn't look weak in defeat because you have like a 15-minute match, something like that. Becky has a good, maintains her, retains her championship, and you have that kind of stuff. You have, you'll have that kind of stuff happen, and basically that's what's going to end up happening here. You do end up having, and I'm going to get to the Raw one here in a second, because those are kind of the undercard matches for Elimination Chamber, even all due respect to Becky. But for Raw, you have more hype for the tag titles. You have Ronda and Ember in the Chamber, and that kind of stuff. You have some good stuff there and everything. Rhea won Charlotte, and so you're building this undercard feud. They have a match and Rhea wins. Charlotte questions herself if she's good enough to be champion again. So then we move on to more build-up. So, and this is where I'm leading to this, because no offense against the tag titles, but you have that kind of stuff. It's like, it is what it is. It is what it is. So you have more build-up on Raw. Ember and Ronda have a face-off. Things get heated. Ronda goes for a shoulder throw. Ember counters, hits a kick to the gut, hits the Eclipse, and is standing over Ronda as that segment closes. In fact, actually, you could close with that goddamn thing. You could close with that. Close a Raw with that. Ember standing over. They wouldn't do that. They would probably close with something else, like the Universal title or something. But having that would be the showing. Ronda actually has a dent in her. Holy crap. On SmackDown, building up to Elimination Chamber, you have Charlotte winning redemption, but instead of Rhea, she gets Mandy. She beats Mandy in about 10 minutes. Rhea then comes in and lays out Charlotte. And I'm talking like really lays her out, really lays her out, really lays her out. So, it hypes up Rhea for Elimination Chamber, and this writes Charlotte off of SmackDown for this reason, because Charlotte's going to jump to Raw soon after. So, like I said, you have the Iconics retain the championship at Elimination Chamber. Becky taps out Naomi, and then Ronda versus Ember. And this is where I really want to get juicy when it comes to this match. At one point, Ember hits the Eclipse, so they have a really, really good match. Ember is selling her arm because Ronda's gone for it. But she hits the Eclipse, and Ronda sells it like crazy, but she's near the ropes. And Ember covers 1, 2, foot on the rope, 3. And the ref counts 3. Ember's music hits, Ember celebrates, but the ref sees the foot and starts calling off and this kind of stuff. Ember is deflated, but still bound and determined. You saw Ronda get beat. The crowd's booing, even though they understand. There's some fans cheering, some fans booing. But Ember got that moment and then goes for another Eclipse. Ronda stops her last second. Shoulder throw off the top, another shoulder throw, locks on the armbar, and there we go. Ember taps out. So you have this moment where Ronda looks beaten, Ember looks strong, Ronda manages to just eke out the victory by getting her foot on the rope, and there you have it. Now I'm going to finish up with the Women's Elimination Chamber match, and then I will fantasy book the rest of it in another show. So thank you guys for sticking with me as I build the undercard feuds and talk about some of the pay-per-view stuff. So for the Women's Elimination Chamber match, winner gets a title shot at WrestleMania 35, and this is where you start to help launch launch like a big star and everything, while keeping everybody else looking strong. No one gets eliminated until the last participant gets in. That's just the way it's going to go. It's going to be the first 5 minutes, and then 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or whatever it is. Or they're going to do 5-minute intervals, I don't know. But Alicia versus Ruby versus Alexa representing Raw versus Sonya versus Asuka versus Rhea. So looking at that, you're thinking, okay, who's going to take the falls first. But not so fast. Ruby and Sonya start out first. So again, you're building up the whole thing with Sonya. And you might think, okay, you're leaving Sonya out there and exposed and this kind of stuff, and she's green and she's young. And that's all true. But in the Rumble, you can protect her by having more women in there, and she can get her spots in. And same with others can get their spots in on her and help guide her and help lead her along. Not saying she's an idiot, because she's not, but that's the way to do it. And that's how you build a star, is you lead them along and help build them and everything. So then you have Ruby and Sonya start out. Alicia comes out. And then Asuka comes out, and everybody's hitting their moves. Alexa comes out 5th, plays the cowardly heel, hit and run heel. No one's eliminated. Rhea comes in and just cleans out, just starts mowing everybody down, including Sonya and Ruby, who are, tired and everything. She ends up paying Alexa, hit a couple big moves. 1, 2, 3. Alexa's gone. Because Alexa's well established. It wasn't going to win this damn thing. Sonya then soon after hits a big finisher and pins Alicia. So now it's down to 4. Ruby tries to go for, the riot kick on Sonya, hits it, but then tries to go for it on Rhea. That doesn't work. Rhea gets the victory, and Rhea gets a victory over Ruby. So you got that going. You're down to 3. Asuka, starts a 3-way battle with them and then battle with them and all that kind of stuff. And it's a great submission battle and that kind of stuff. And, strength battle. But Sonya pins Asuka. Asuka's gone. Crowd's cheering Sonya. And this is how I envision it. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Sonya and Rhea have a submission, strength battle and stuff like that. Sonya's winded, obviously, after being in the match so long. Rhea, that's kind of stuff, and this is how you build it. Even though Rhea's a champion, you use Rhea and her credibility, even as a youthful star, and you establish credibility with Sonya, and you keep both women looking strong. No, we're not getting a double finish here because it's a chamber. Rhea looks to have a 1. Sonya suddenly does the hair, put your hair up and square up. I would do that, but I have no hair. Sonya then ends up getting a couple sudden moves in, big kick, the finish, and she pins Rhea, and Sonya gets a title shot at WrestleMania 35. And that's where I'm going to leave this off here. So that's how you build a star. That's how you keep people looking strong. That's how you fucking do it. So anyway, I want to know what you guys think of that. What do you guys think of this show? Do you guys like my ideas? Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. It's been Real Honesty with John Ritlin, and I will see you soon.